Okay, we got a potential deal today for a Padsplit. So I got sent this deal maybe about just a few days ago before I went on vacation. Spent majority of the time while I was on the airplane doing some analysis about 2 nights ago, and we're getting ready to make an offer on this property. So I'm going to walk you guys through maybe about 5 steps today. One is quickly how to look at the property so you can decide whether or not it's worth your time investing your time to analyze the property even on a greater detail level. Look into street views, understand the neighborhood a little bit to see whether or not this is the ideal neighborhood or a property for a pad split, which is your co-living rentals. Number three is I'm going to walk you guys through the video walkthrough of the property so you can decide and actually look at the property how I would look at the property to see whether or not there is an opportunity for a pad split. Number four, we're going to walk through the numbers and the actual assumptions for the rental analysis. And then number five, we're going to talk about what the offer is that we're going to put in to make it a deal, quote unquote. So first things first is we got done this deal, 2929 Bonnie Drive. Again, this is Monday, August 21st. You can still see that it is for sale. So you know I am using a live data point and a live property. So right then and there, I'm going to go quickly look at the property and I am going to go through some of the photos to see what the opportunities are. Now, this looks like the living room. I love this layout because it's a very open living and dining room area. So we can have a lot of flexibility in what we're going to do. I can see right away that this is a room. There's a window over here. Looks like there's another window over there. Yeah, so this might be almost 2 rooms because you see how wide it is. Yeah, that could be 1, 2. This is probably from the living room side. So 1 room, 2 rooms, and then 3 rooms. So right then and there, I'm at 3. This looks like the master with the ensuite. Bathrooms are great. Really, really nice finishes. That's perfect. Bathroom is nice. There's some carpeting. Maybe I'll remove them, but I'm not too concerned about the condition of the home. For the most part, it looks like it's been renovated pretty well. There's the laundry room with the laundry hook up there that I see. This must be downstairs, I think. Looks like 1 room there and another room here. Yeah, this must be the other side of the room. That was the basement. So it looks like I can at least get 1, 2, 3 from the top side, another 2 rooms down there. So that's 5 rooms right away. I might be able to get it to 4 to 8 or 9 bedrooms. So for me right away, based on all my analysis that I've done so far of this market, I've understood that I really need things to at least be an 8-bedroom conversion, if not a 9-bedroom conversion, to sort of make this a potential deal or to make it worth a while. Now, here's the next thing I'm going to do. I know that parking is going to be a very, very, very important factor to make my property stand out. And I'm calling this the intangibles because you can always renovate your property to make it nicer, to have nicer finishes, but you can't create parking out of nowhere. So I'm looking at this property right now. It's on a nice neighborhood. What I'm looking for here is, again, any boarded up windows. I don't want to be in a bad neighborhood where there's trash on the sidewalk and everything. No boarded up windows. Just a quick glance. Yep. Conditions of the house is generally what I would expect here. You see that most homes in this neighborhood have a similar format, driveway, little split level design. Again, I'm looking for no signs of boarded up houses, and that works pretty well. And let me go back to the other side. See, this is what is really attracting me to this property. This property right here has one, maybe you can squeeze in two driving spots, but it doesn't matter. For a 8 or 9 bedroom home, I could have a property with a ton of parking here. Now look at this: 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, and then 6, 7, 8. Like, this is a dead end street right here. This is a lot of parking. This will probably not bother my neighbors. Versus if I bought this home up here, I might only have 1, 2 spots, 1, 2, and then maybe if even 1 spot right here without kind of stepping onto my neighbor's property on their curbside. So these are the intangibles I'm talking about. You want to look for a lot of parking availability. Granted, the number of bathrooms will definitely help, but parking is number one. Okay. Next thing I want to look at is some details about the neighborhood. Now, I go to Neighborhood Scout, and here I am trying to understand whether or not I am overpaying for this property. So I generally like to look at the median home value. So this is a brand new renovated property, I can see the median home value was $250,000. My home's about 280, so slightly about 10%, but I don't think that's like overpaying for a property, especially if the intangibles make sense. Meaning, I have a lot of parking, and I want to look at also the distance to the closest MARTA, which is the public transportation um, bus line or public transportation name for the Atlanta area. So not very walkable. I'm looking for single households. Half the folks here are singles, so that's good to know. Those are your typical clientele for renters of pad splits. Employment industries. I'm looking for transportation, factory laborers, like anything that you can probably attribute to people that might want to work by the hours. A lot of people drive in this area, so that's why parking is so important. And there you go. Occupations, factory workers and laborers, 26%. Um, Sometimes your physical labor workers, your service level workers are probably going to be the folks that are renting pad splits. We've heard any examples from hospitality, like people that will work in hotels, people that work in retail, folks that might be serving a factory, people that might be working in a factory, such or a fulfillment center, like an Amazon fulfillment center. Another example is people that just drive Uber and Lyft for a part-time job, and this is like a great way to allow you to set aside some income and live in affordable housing when you don't have to pay, hopefully don't have to pay more than $200 a week or more than a third of your income, whatever you make. So looking at crime, this is not bad. 48, 100 is safest. So 48 is pretty good. Looking at schools, again, this is a working class neighborhood. So not as many families here. So as I go through this, I'm thinking about, okay, this is probably a cash flow play because the schools aren't the best ranked school system in the surrounding suburbs. There might be less appreciation. Granted, appreciation is always a little bit of a gamble. You can't bet on it, but I'm just trying to get an understanding of what is happening in this market. So cool. Now that we have gone through a glance of the property and then looking at some of the parking availability, that makes me feel pretty good that, hey, as an 8-bedroom home, this is probably potentially a deal. Now, what I'm going to go next is ask my realtor to, one, check on the condition of the home, but then also see if I can get any estimates for what a rehab might cost. So I am going to pull up a video of a video walkthrough of the property. And let me see if I can bring this up. Okay. So this is a video walkthrough of the property, and let's walk through it together. So here's the living room that we talked about. So I can see one bedroom right here, put a wall right here, boom. And then there's another room right here because this was the living room door right here that was on the left. Boom. And then this is your third room. This is a great angle right here. So that's your third room. So that's 3 rooms. Walking through the context. The bathroom looks like it's great condition, good rehab, looking like a super modern tiled thing. So we're gonna have a nicer product to put onto the market that looks a little bit nicer. Carpet, I would generally try to replace carpet with flooring, but in this scenario, the property has been mostly rehab. I can just let the cash flow set aside the reserves before I decide to do any more flooring work here. And this is the ensuite bathroom. As we go down to the basement, boom, this is great. This is the laundry room that we saw from the photos. This looks like 1 bedroom. And this is the interesting part. What I'm going to do is this room right here, this actually leads to this back room. So what we're going to do is, oh, this is great. We're going to take down this wall, assuming it's not a weight-bearing wall. And when you take down this wall, there becomes a tunnel. So the bathroom over here is going to be accessible to the rest of the property. And this is the bathroom. Yeah. So what we're going to do is this is the bathroom. We're going to blow up this wall. This bathroom will be accessible by this property, this room right here, and the room behind us right here. So this allows us to get almost a 9-bedroom count. Sometimes you might not be able to figure that out until you actually walk the property, but boom. Here's one room, and here's one room. And that's how you get your 9-bedroom count for this property. Okay, cool. Now that I have a general sense of the property, what I want to do next is figure out, okay, what is my conversion going to cost and what are my rental assumptions? So right now, what you can do is, I'll just move that over. You can do a couple of things. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look up any active listings and just see how much supply there is in this area. So in Jonesboro, Georgia, you can just take a quick look at it. And Jonesboro is right here. Jonesboro, I see one property that is there's only one available room here. Let's see. This is a 9-bed, 3-bath. So great. This tells me that there's some demand because there's a 9-bedroom home. It's already been booked up to 8 bedrooms. This person lowered it to 157 a week. So that might be my floor. And when I looked at the initial property, you can see that here is my realtor. He also had a property or a friend that sold, and they're averaging $187 a room, and ensuite charges $255. Great. So that's my first data point. I'm getting data points from my realtor and also my GC, who will give me a bid for the property. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my Padsplit account rep on what I can expect to do that. So when I reach out to my Padsplit executive, her name is Blake, and she was able to give me some zip code numbers, meaning she can tell me what the true occupancy is. In this scenario, it's 81% for this neighborhood, and the attainable occupancy, which is 93.5%. True occupancy is just your typical how many rooms are filled divided by total number of rooms. Attainable occupancy means now you're excluding those numbers, and these are the rooms that can actually be filled by your Padsplit marketing team, etc. And the reason why this is higher is because if you have any rooms that are currently being turned that have already been booked, but people haven't moved in yet, that is your delta. So those rooms, when you add those up to the rooms that are already occupied, that gets you to your attainable occupancy on average. And I get some average prices from her. She's at like 154, 165, depending on what neighborhoods you are. I can get the rebook time so I can generally assess what the demand looks like for this neighborhood. And then finally, here's the range of some of the properties. Great. I have that number. What I'll also then do is I will probably reach out to a property manager who also manages Padsplit in this area. Now, let's see if I can bring this up. So I reached out to a local property manager, and I asked them specifically, hey, what can I generally expect to make on this Jonesboro property in this neighborhood? They already manage a few properties, so they said, hey, the rooms with private might be about 275 to 300, which is in line with what I heard from my realtor and GC. And then the other rooms average about 165 to 180. Awesome. So now I have the rental assumptions for my property so that I can actually underwrite with it. So just to recap what we've done so far. We've looked at the property. We've looked at the street view to make sure the intangibles are there. We looked at the photos to ensure that, hey, it's probably worth a while for us to go a little bit deeper into the property to see whether or not that is a deal or not for a Padsplit. Then we looked at the street views to look for any signs of parking. We looked at the median price value on Neighborhood Scout. And then finally, we just went through the video walkthrough of the property so we can understand how to look at the property to see whether it is a deal for a Padsplit. We just went through all the assumptions that we went through. So I would recommend at least going through 2 types of data validation for your potential Padsplit. I went through 4 just now. The first one is going through Padsplit right here, where I'm looking at available rooms and looking at the supply in the market. Number 2 is you can ask your Padsplit executive. I'll make sure I post my referral link to Blake here. She's a OG Padsplit account executive who can help you a lot with a lot of these data points. And I got my occupancy estimated average rents from her. I've also had a realtor and a GC who does a lot of Padsplit conversions. So he was able to provide me some data points on potential rents. And then lastly, the 4th data point I had was reaching out to a property manager who manages Padsplits and get some actual numbers. So don't make it up, right? I would recommend at least using 2 data points to understand what are my rent assumptions for the property, because that drives your top line number. That's going to be really, really important. Okay, so now the next step is we're actually going to underwrite this using Excel now on a spreadsheet. So Here is the property, and I am going to show you exactly how I get these numbers. So 1 second over here. All right. So here's my property side by side. And then here's my spreadsheet side by side. I'm going to zoom in because I got feedback last time saying it was a little hard to see. So you can see this property. So I have 2929 Botany Drive, Jonesboro, 280,000. Again, this is a real live example. This is for sale on MLS right now. I'm intending to put in an offer as soon as I finish this underwriting deal. $280,000. So again, my assumptions are there's one room with an ensuite bathroom. We went through the video walkthrough on how many rooms I can actually get. So I put in 8 rooms here. And remember, when we talked to a property manager, they said it ranges from 165 to 180 per week. So I'm going to use the lower end of that range just to see what my occupancy might look like and what my rents might look like. So I'm using 165 for the rent because that's being conservative. Our occupancy from Blake was about 80%, 81% for true occupancy versus attainable occupancy. So I'm going to be really conservative there too. That's why I'm using 46 booked weeks per week. 46 booked weeks per year as my assumption. So as I kind of go through, that weekly rate is just a sum of all the rents down here that adds up to $1,595 a week. My annual revenue just multiplied by that. Our gross rent assumption is just simply that divided by 12. And then my property taxes. I'm just going in here and I'm grabbing the property tax value right here, 192. So using 192 from estimated annual property taxes, 192 times 12. That's how I put in my property taxes. Insurance. This is 145. This is assuming this is a primary residence buyer for the insurance. So I'm going to add 20% right away just because I'm assuming my insurance will probably be more expensive if this is a rental property. I haven't gotten a quote yet, but you're just trying to use a rule of thumb to estimate the insurance expenses here. Next step I have here is I am going to be the asset manager for this property. So I'm going to charge my partnership 2% to stay on top of the property managers. And furnishing expenses. I am going to try to see if I can pull up the quote for you guys. And let me see if I can get the estimate from my GC. Great. So here is my quote from the GC. I have itemized bids for all the renovations that need to take place. So all in all, this comes out to about $29,980 since I already had a GC walk it and get all the repairs. So at $29,980, that's where you get it up here, $29,980. Now, in the GC quote, the GC said they will probably have to inspect the air conditioner to see whether or not it's too old. I already know that a new HVAC system will probably cost me about $5,500. So if I'm making this into a 9-bedroom property, I might need to add an additional HVAC system. So right then and there, I'm adding extra $5,500 in my rehab costs because I want to be a little bit more conservative. Then I added another $2,000 contingency. $1,000 is for I want to buy a personal refrigerator for each room. I want my Padsplit property to stand out against all the other Padsplit properties in there. And having grown up with 9 people in a 2-bedroom home for temporary basis, it's very important to give people a sense of ownership, a sense of independence. And I think having their own refrigerator, in my opinion, is great. I'm not sure if it has true ROI, but I'm simply trying to make my property stand out and be the best property and attract the best tenants in my property. So I put an extra $1,000 in there, and I put an extra $1,000 for contingency, just in case there are issues that I don't see. Because that $29,980 that you saw in the quote earlier, that already includes some of the furnishing for the property. So all in all, I got 2.5% closing costs on here, 25% down payment. I got 5 months of reserves just to start off, and just in case there's any issues that happens with the property. And we're gonna go into the appraisal side. So I got 25% down payment. This is assuming a 7.375% interest rate on your conventional loan. As I go through these items here, property taxes, this expense flowed right through from the first page that we talked about. Same thing for insurance. My property management company is going to charge us 8% to manage the property for Padsplit purposes. I have my asset management fee that I'm putting in place to manage and stay on top of the property managers for my partners on behalf of my partners. So you know that there's always someone looking at the numbers and looking at issues that might be coming up. For Padsplit fees, there is about a 12% Padsplit platform fee, and then there is a 2.75% swipe fee. So that gets you to 14.75%. This is a really big expense item. Uh, we know that our bookkeeper will charge us $225 per month to do the bookkeeping. I am dividing that by 2 because I want to use reasonable assumptions. I am probably going to have at least 2, if not 3 properties in the LLC. So I am dividing it by 2. So I'm splitting that cost. So it's like a true property cost. So I'm not overestimating. Water, sewer, trash. I got these numbers from our realtor who also owns a few Padsplits themselves. $275 for electric, being a little bit more conservative there. A lawn and cleaning, $180 a month. Internet at $50 a month. I got some various fees like $250 to spend on some cleaning supplies. And then finally, if you have an LLC, you might be spending money on a lawyer to file the LLC or file those LLC returns. It's usually about $1,800 to file returns on LLC. So I'm putting in $900 there. Then finally, we're setting aside at least $100 a month for maintenance purposes in case something breaks. So we have it down here as a little maintenance reserve. And that gets me to about a 47% expense ratio onto this property. Here's what I want to call out for people. A lot of folks, when they analyze deals, they just look at the PITI and what the potential rents are. They forget about all these operating costs that are associated with it. And this is why a lot of people in Airbnbs are losing money. They forget that, hey, the water, sewer, trash, electric, cleaning, expenses, internet, all add up. Plus, you got some admin fees for your bookkeeper, because I always want my partners to have the peace of mind that someone is also looking at the books, looking at numbers. So there's no fishy things kind of going on. And don't forget, you got to pay admin costs to do your LLC, because why are we doing all this? Eventually, we want to get big enough so we can hire other folks to handle a lot of this admin work, right? You don't want to do all this stuff. So don't leave out these expenses from your analysis, because these are true expenses. And as you scale, the property needs to be sustainable and run on its own to actually pay for all these expenses. So here's where we are. After plugging all these numbers in, I go through a little scenario analysis. And let me see if I can zoom out just so you can see the cash and cash return number change a little bit. Okay, so this is the number that you want to pay attention to for the cash and cash return. Right now, it's a 17.5% return, which is my partners and I minimum criteria for an investment. It needs to return at least 17.5% every single year. So if I invested $100 into this investment, I would want to make $17.50 every single year as a return on my capital. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what cash on cash return is. So at 46 weeks, I'm saying this is my low case scenario. And if I still make this scenario at 46 weeks, getting to 73.4K, this is 17.5% return here. If I bump this up to 48 weeks, which is probably likely because I'm putting in personal refrigerators, I would argue that our property is nicer than the other properties. I am now at 76.6 grand for my gross revenue, and I am at a 19.5% cash and cash return for my property. If I bump this up to 50 weeks, which is, I'm assuming that's probably my best case scenario, this is now at 79.8 grand in rent per year. And that results in a 21.4% cash and cash return. In my opinion, after putting in all these numbers and being conservative, this is absolutely a deal. And I think this was important for you guys to see on what a deal actually looks like and why I am about to make an offer on this property. So I'll even show you the email that I sent. So I briefly talked about, like, hey, $280,000 might be my ceiling because I want to be at 17.5% return. So even though I go to 281, that still brings me to roughly 17.4. So that's within my margin of error. Now, here's what I did. I looked at the surrounding area, and I'm going to bring this up to you. I'm trying to figure out what purchase price do I want to make this offer on now. So what did we just do? We said, hey, this is definitely a deal. I want to buy this property. Well, what does my surrounding inventory look like? So what I did was, and my partner did, was we looked at a bunch of different addresses also on the market right now that might be sitting for a little bit. Saw a bunch of properties in Southeast Atlanta with similar purchase price, $279. Some of them were $250. And I went through a little comparison now exercise. Like, hey, what are all the Bed Bath counts? What are the square footage differences? Lot size seems to be all within right range. I looked at where or not there's a garage in each property, where or not there's carpeting, so we need to do some flooring work. As a kitchen and bathroom, kind of pretty modern with different finishes. And then finally, I decided to look at, well, what are the most important items? I want to look at for my property in Jonesboro. How does it compare to other available inventory on the MLS, on Redfin or Zillow, based off of some of the intangibles? One of them is the distance to the closest public transportation, meaning how many miles walking is it to get to the closest bus stop? And I can show this on a separate page for you guys so you guys can quickly see how to quickly look at the distance to um, your bus stop. So if you go in here and you go to Google Maps, just click on transit after you plug in your address, and you can see that these little red things come up. This is your closest bus stop. So right then and there, you can see the subject properties right here. Then you can see how close it is to the bus stop. And that's why I want to understand, hey, is the property I'm putting it in for, even though it has a similar purchase price as other properties, is my property better for my investment purposes? And in this scenario, it is a resounding yes, because my property is 0.6 miles, and then all these other properties are like 1 mile, 1.5, 1.9 miles. And that's a really, really far walk to a bus stop. That's not ideal for someone that's commuting to work. Then finally, I have now this kind of tells you like how far the walk is to the bus stop, which is important. How far is it to drive to downtown? You can see they're all in like the mid-20s, which isn't that bad. I looked at how long does it take to ride the bus into downtown. And then finally, the most important one was parking. Our property is superior because you look at our property, it had about 7 to 8 parking spots compared to all these other ones that might have 2, 3, maybe sometimes even 1, because you're on a main street and there's no street parking on those properties. And then I looked at all the photos, even though I didn't have anybody walk it, I tried to assess, hey, my property, I can turn it into 9 rooms because of the locations of the windows, because of how the house was laid out. But in this scenario, I understood that, hey, my house, I can convert into 9. All these other homes that I see available on MLS, they can probably convert to 6, 7. There's one property that can possibly convert to 8. But why do I not want that property? Because it's 1.9 miles away from the bus stop. And if you have people that are trying to commute to work and need to walk to the bus stop, nobody wants to walk 40 minutes just to get to a bus. So again, that is a good example of why it was not a deal for us, even though that this property was a 5.3, definitely a superior property if you think about it. But this for me was the deal killer. Just wrapping up, we are putting in an offer on this property for $280,000 with a escalation clause up to $281,000. And just in case anyone puts in an offer for 280, so we'll beat that offer by 1,000 to up to 281. And that's the offer we're putting in. Cool. Thanks for listening. And hopefully this was a great example of a property that, one, we analyzed together live, understood the rent assumptions, looked at the property in a structured manner, meaning, just again, to summarize, we looked at how to look at the photos, how to see how many pictures, how many rooms we can convert based on the pictures. And then we looked at the street views for parking, intangibles, neighborhood scout reports for safety, crime, jobs, demographics. Then we looked at the video walkthrough of the property to understand how can we actually convert these potential open living spaces into bedrooms. And then we put that all into an Excel spreadsheet with the assumptions so that we can figure out whether or not it's actually a deal. And you saw that using a very conservative occupancy of 46 weeks, we determined that that was still a 17.5% cash on cash return, which is our criteria. That is how we knew it was a deal and why we're making an offer on the property right away. And that's how we decided on the number, because up to 281 was still a deal at 17.5%. We'll see how it goes. And thank you for watching. And hopefully this was helpful for all you guys looking to invest into properties and had questions on how to analyze a Padsplit to see if it is a deal. Thank you. If you like this, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at Invest with Kent He. If you want a copy of the calculator that I use, please make sure you DM me your email and I will email the calculator, same one that I use to analyze this plat split on the property. And if you want to watch a replay, just go to my youtube.com/@Kent_key. And this video will be right in the live section for now. So you can replay it, look at how I analyzed the property from beginning to end, determine that it was a deal, and made an offer on the property. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good one.